This podcast is sponsored by nobody. Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s named horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now, it's almost 1 a.m. here in California, and it's post-Oscar night. I'm going to be talking to Yamil Borges. Yamil, she played Morales in A Chorus Line, the movie. She'll be my third guest from that. I always loved the Nothing song that she sings in that movie. She was just so wonderful. She's got this old-timey jazz vocal voice that's just wonderful. In fact, she is a jazz singer in Germany. And she's done a lot of great stuff on Broadway. She did West Side Story. You know, she's done Chicago. She guest starred on Miami Vice and The Cosby Show. And we're going to talk about all that stuff today. And I cannot wait. Like I said, it's almost 1 a.m. It's post-Oscar night. This was a great Oscars year because there was no drama, no politics, no causes, no nothing. It was just a fantastic night of equality. And it was just a pleasant experience watching. And holy shit, Ki Kwan, yes, Data from the Goonies, won Best Supporting Actor. Short round in Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom. I never thought another Goonie would amount to anything. And Jamie Lee Curtis won Best Supporting Actress. Need I say more? Fuck yeah, Jamie Lee. She gave a shout out to all the horror fans in her speech. Congrats, Ki Kwan and Jamie Lee Curtis. Also, Brendan Fraser. Even though I would prefer Austin Butler to win, I'm glad Brendan Fraser did as well. And he's on the comeback trail. So yeah, here is my interview with Yamil Borges. So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward dancing, performing, and acting early on in your childhood?
Yes, I did. That was an opportunity that I had. I was living in the inner city of New York City. I was living in the South Bronx. And around the time of the age of 9 or 10 years old, there was an after-school program called Samsek. And it was something for, just bringing cultural diversity information to the neighborhood, and I had the opportunity to work with a wonderful dancer by the name of Polly Rogers, whose family actually was very big in the dance world, in the Latin American dance scene, and she was our teacher. And then I found my mentor from Cuba. His name was Esteban Chavao. And yeah, from the age of 10, I started to dance, and I found my tribe, so to speak.
Yeah. Are you trained in all types of dancing?
Well, at that time, our dancing was mostly Afro jazz, Afro-Cuban rhythms, pretty much that whole Latin scene because it was a cultural program. So, and we were a neighborhood full of African Americans and Hispanics. So that was the introduction to that jazz and Afro-Cuban dance rhythms. But in the High School of Performing Arts, which is where I attended at the age of 13, I majored in Martha Graham modern dance technique.
Nice. Did you do a lot of school plays and community theater growing up?
Well, not really, because the school that I was in, the junior high school that I was in, and the grade schools that I was in, that was the only program that I was in that Samsek, and we did have live performances. So, but in junior high school and stuff, I didn't participate in anything like that. Most of my performances at that time were part of that Samsek program.
So after high school, did you attend college?
Unfortunately not. It was, it was one of my big regrets in life, I must say.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately left home after I graduated from high school, and then I sort of had my introduction out into the world that at that time. But then I started to dance. I started to take more classes in jazz and musical theater, and then I started to work at clubs, just doing like review shows. I worked in a club called Ibis many years ago as a review dancer. And from there, I prepared myself for my musical auditions. And then from there, I got my first Broadway show, which was the first revival of West Side Story with Leonard Bernstein himself and Jerome Robbins in collaboration with Lee Theodore and Stephen Sondheim and all of that tribe. So my first musical on Broadway was with the icons of West Side Story.
Yeah, that must have been just amazing. It must have been surreal. Did any of those guys mentor you?
Well, actually, yes. Leonard Bernstein mentored me in the sense that he was always available. I mean, I don't know what other people's experiences were. Jerome Robbins was an enigma, to say the least, but always incredible to observe in his directions. And Lenny was just a juicy, very energetic supporter. He would come to see any other shows that I was performing in. The last time I saw him, I was at the Lincoln Center Theater with Julie Taymor's The Transposed Heads, and he was there, and it was that was the last time I got to see him.
Oh, wow. I noticed one of your castmates was the Debbie Allen. What was she like to work with?
Debbie Allen was, at that time for me, the most generous, incredible, loving, tolerant big sister I could have ever asked for. She was, for me, she was a mentor, I must say. She was actually a mentor. She tried to help me prepare myself for auditions for the Fame TV series, which I did get to audition for, but never really got my foot in the door. But Debbie then allowed me to be part of the dancing backups for that show. And then when it went to LA, I sadly I couldn't go. But Debbie Allen is, for me, just the most incredible artist. Her legacy for me will be timeless as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, are you still in touch with her?
Sadly, no. I mean, our West Side Story gang, we keep in touch. And there was a reunion in 2019 that I couldn't attend. And she was there, but sadly, no. And I understand being in touch with someone of her caliber, with the incredible schedule that she has to continue her legacy, is mostly impossible.
Yeah. Absolutely. I noticed one of your castmates was Ken Marshall, who later did the movie Kroll, and Nancy Ticotin, who's Rachel Ticotin's sister. Yeah, that's a good cast that you had there. Did Rita Moreno come to see the show?
Yes, we had an incredible. Who? Yes, I think she did actually.
Yeah.
I think she did come see the show, but that was, I mean, we're talking about 1979. 1979 to 1980 or 81,
Yeah. Then you do El Bravo on Broadway. How was that experience?
El Bravo was not on Broadway.
Oh, okay.
El Bravo was at the Intermedia Theater in the Lower East Side. And actually, I was speaking yesterday to my dear friend Olga Meredis, who played my aunt in El Bravo, and we were discussing about how El Bravo was ahead of its time. We didn't get to land on Broadway. Jose Fernandez, who had written the piece, passed away from AIDS. I think, I'm not quite sure around what time. It was definitely after El Bravo, but it was definitely ahead of its time, because I was asking her, because in The Heights, which she also got to play with Lin-Manuel, I said, my God, it almost had that whole feel of that neighborhood that we tried to create with El Bravo. Sadly, it didn't evolve from there. But I worked with Jennifer Lewis, who was awesome. Even then at that time, she was a force to be dealt with. Yeah. And Star Denias, who was also in the show, an incredible ballet dancer. Yeah, it was fun. It was incredibly fun.
And we can't forget Michelle Mays, who's been on the show. She is awesome.
Michelle is one of my dearest Boafa. We call each other Boafa sisters, because we worked on Broadway with Harold Prince with his sadly unsuccessful rendition of the movie Madame Rosa, who was performed by Simone Signoret in the movie. And Gilbert Bicot wrote the music for it, and Michelle played one of my sisters. And we had, as you know, Georgia Brown, who was, to be on stage with that woman was, even before being on stage with her, she let all of us hang out with her in her dressing room before the shows. I think of her fondly, always. And Michelle is one of my big, also, sisters.
Yeah, she's a great person. I adore her. I noticed Keith Jochum was in the play, too. I tried to get him on here last year. What was he like?
Yes, oh my gosh. Oh, I remember him also just being incredibly talented. I mean, I have to say, New York, the pool of talent in New York in that time, and we're talking about people who had to study their craft offline, okay? I mean, there are so many things that you have available at your fingertips nowadays in order to study or to get your foot inside of a technique or something. I mean, I was surrounded by organically authentic, genuine talent, I have to say. And he was one of them.
Nice. So how does a chorus line come into your life?
Well, I'm Puerto Rican. Mm-hmm. I graduated from the High School of Performing Arts. I grew up in the South Bronx. So when they were auditioning for a chorus line, I was a showgirl at Atlantic City, working for Betsy Haug, who I had worked in the reviews with in New York prior to my first Broadway show. And I found out that they were auditioning, and I just wanted to audition. And I did. I did 6 months of auditions, and it was really very, very hard. 6 months of auditions, going back and forth. And my last audition, I was in crutches. I was in crutches because I was working with Julie Taymor in the Transposed Heads, and during an improv, I hurt my foot. And then I wound up going and doing my last audition. And then after 6 months of rigorous singing and readings, I decided my nervous system couldn't handle it anymore. And then I decided, okay, if I don't get this show, if I don't get this movie, then I really need to reconsider my career choices, because I knew I was perfect for the role. But I knew that everyone else that was auditioning was just as capable of doing the role, and if not better at singing or better at dancing or whatever. But my soul felt I had a story that was true to me, that was also true to the character, and I got it, and I'm grateful. grateful, immensely grateful.
You brought a lot of authenticity to that character of Morales doing that nothing song, and it shows in your performance, and I mean that sincerely. I just love it every time I watch the movie. I cry, you know.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, did you like give her a backstory?
Thank you. What do you mean? While I was
Yeah, like
performing her, if she had a backstory? Well, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, yeah. The backstory was what it was for many people of ethnicity. Still, I mean, I was in a Broadway world, you know, and I was a dancer, so you know that Broadway's chorus lines were basically not made out of what I was made out of.
yeah.
If I was 5'2", Latin, I didn't have, you know what I mean? That was the backstory. But and everyone has a backstory when it comes to their career. There's always a Mr. Carp in the edges or in the wings, waiting in the wings. Do you know?
Oh yeah.
And I've had Mr. Carps throughout my career many times, and I have to just constantly reinvent myself. At that time, I didn't feel that my singing, I wasn't really a singer at that time. When I look at the movie, I say, damn, if I could only sing that the way I could sing it now, you know, but I knew that my heart understood the character, definitely.
Yeah. And yeah, I've had Jan on here many times, and she's a good friend of mine, and I just adore her. Did you become close to any of your fellow cast members?
I was close to Jan. We've been trying to reach her, Tom, because we have a chorus line Zoom group, and we were trying to get a hold of Jan.
Yeah.
You need to call her and tell her to contact me on Facebook, because we have a chorus line Zoom call in a week or so.
Okay.
She was my roommate in the theater.
Mm-hmm.
We shared the dressing room. She was a beautiful spirit. Tell her I think of her and send her love.
I sure will, yeah, because it was probably you, her, and Audrey Landers that were like sharing a dressing room, right?
No, it was just she and I.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that everybody is great in the movie. Janet Jones, Vicky Frederick, Allison Reed as Cassie. They are all just so great in this movie. And I don't know. I mean, there was people who thought it was strange that Richard Attenborough decided to follow up Gandhi with this movie, you know. But do you think he did good to the story?
Well, listen, I think artists have an innate instinct when they know that something is right on target, and when something isn't right on target. And I learned to love Sir Richard in ways that after a chorus line, when we had to do the movie promotion throughout Europe and Japan, and because those countries, the movie was incredibly popular in those countries. I mean, you have to remember, a chorus line in America only lasted in the movie theaters like for what, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
And no more than that. I mean, it was not successful. It was a flop, and immediately it was a flop because people were incensed that it was Sir Richard Attenborough.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I understand. I definitely understand their sentiments at that time. I do completely. But it doesn't negate the fact that the movie is still available, still able to be viewed, and it still touches people's hearts and imaginations. So if for nothing else, at least there's a movie of a chorus line. And unless Steven Spielberg decides to, like he did with West Side story, make a remake of the movie A Chorus Line, then it will remain one of Sir Richard Attenborough's pieces. What can I say?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally think the movie is flawless. You know, I certainly enjoy it. What was Michael Douglas like?
Michael Douglas was a gentleman.
Mm-hmm.
He was approachable when he was there. I mean, of course, I mean, you have to understand, I have no illusions of people that have this kind of status in our business. There is an incredible amount of extensions of energies that they have to give to other aspects of their career.
Right.
So when they have the time to be one-on-one, to hang out and have a cup of coffee with the cast, or to talk to the cast, or to make a toast with the cast, it's always appreciated. And he was like that. He was a gentleman and kind. And yeah, it was an honor. It was an honor. It was my 15 minutes, Tom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and what a 15 minutes. Terrence Mann, he's a wonderfully eccentric actor. I enjoy everything that he's in. I can imagine him being a really nice guy to work with.
He was on his game.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it that way. He was definitely on his game, you know, because after Michael, the next, how would I say, the next leader for the gang was Terrence, you know. Right. So it worked. It was perfect. There were some things that I myself would have said, well, I think the biggest challenges were, especially when we were surrounded by all the Broadway gypsies for those incredible scenes of the last part of the movie. You know, when all the dancers are there for the auditions, when they're there for the chorus line at the end of the movie, to be surrounded by this vast pool of gypsy dancers that were just as talented, if not more, than all of us on that stage.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And to then wonder, why did I get it? Why did that person to not get it? Why is that person doing this role and not that person? You know, when they're the authentic Broadway gypsies, because let me be clear. At that time, and even today, I can imagine, New York is a microcosm of a macrocosm of this vast I don't know, I can't explain it. This vast community of hustlers.
Right.
You know, at that time, there were dance schools all over New York. Right. There was Phil Black. There was the Harkness Ballet. There was Steps. There was JoJo's Dance Factory. There was the Broadway Dance Center. There was Harlem Dance School, School of Dance. There was all of this stuff, and you had people coming from all over the world trying to get on Broadway. And so that kind of mentality that you needed to survive in New York, because I don't know what it was like in Los Angeles, but if you notice, the movie is a lot of people from the West and a lot of people from the East, because why not? That's what the dance world is. It's multinational. It's not just regional. It's international as well. But in New York, there was this thing where it was like dance or die. I mean, literally, dance or die. Buy that pizza and have food tonight, or take that dance class. Go into the unemployment line and stay there and hope to that audition in time. And we used to call our unemployment center on the Upper West Side on 90th Street. When we would meet all of our dancing gypsy friends there, we called it Club 90. I'll see you at Club 90 next month when it was time to get our check, you know, because that's how it was. And how did we get our dance auditions? How did we get our dance auditions if you didn't have an agent? You waited for Thursday mornings for Backstage and Show Business newspapers to come out. I mean, let's talk talk about what it's like now to go to auditions and the access that you have to information. Our information was either word of mouth, an agent or union, a post, or these two newspapers, Show Business and Backstage.
Yeah.
And we didn't have handies. We had a phone number that you would call to get messages from agents.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You had a special phone number that you would dial to see if you got any agent calls.
Right.
And so that kind of hustle creates a dynamic of a dancer. Like I said, it's not just, oh, I'm dancing because I love it and it's fun. It's like I have to dance because this is my expression of my soul. And so I don't know. I digress a little bit from your question,
okay.
But I'm just remembering now. Things are coming up to the surface of what it was like to be a Broadway gypsy and doing the movie,
mm-hmm.
and having those moments when all of these people were together and loving on each other.
Yeah, I mean,
loving on each other.
A Chorus Line and Fame.
Awesome.
A Chorus Line and Fame. They both were great commentaries on how screwed up the business of show business can be. But if you just have hope, you can get it done. And of course now there's the internet, and people think that they can. Just about everybody thinks they can do something on YouTube. Whether it's a dance or stupid pet tricks or whatever. It's a completely different world now. But these plays, they're timeless. They hold up.
Yeah. And that's what, going back to your question about did I think Sir Richard was the right person? Mm-hmm. Sir Richard never said that he was the right person. He never said, well, it couldn't have been anybody but me. He was not like that. Mm-hmm. But what he said is, I just want to show the human experience of the dancer, right? And people were like, oh, but how can you film dancers from the waist up, and things like that. But he said, yeah, but I wanted to zoom in, no pun intended.
Yeah.
I wanted to zoom in on the human experience of the wishes and the hopes and the humiliation and because sometimes it is humiliating, isn't it? To pour your heart out and then say, oh yeah, you still don't have what we want or what we need. Oh, but listen, you're right. Being a dancer today, comparing being a dancer today to that time, I can't really, because I'm not dancing anymore, right? So I can't really compare that. Mm-hmm. But I'm a teacher. I don't teach dance. I teach singing. But I watch how students don't have a chance to fail because their failure is so advertised and marketed. And I think that's what I miss. I miss the fact that failing at an audition without someone filming you now while you're failing. Do you know?
Yeah.
What I mean? It's just different. It's just like you're allowed to fail, and then you have your friends that pat you on the back and pick you up and wipe your tears and kick your ass back out on stage. Right. And I have to tell you, I think, don't forget, okay, the last 3 years, we had that whole 2020 bullshit that went down, right, and that really affected our community. But I was doing that during the time of the AIDS epidemic, when most of the people that I depended on to support me and that I also supported, they were dropping like flies.
Yeah.
And that we as dancers still found it in our hearts to continue, not only because we had to, but also because we had a legacy for our friends that we had to continue to put forth. When we kept losing our dancers, our directors, our choreographers to that deadly disease, and that disease for me, that was a wake-up call. And you had to dance after that because the people that you loved couldn't. anymore.
Absolutely.
That was major.
Absolutely. Do you have any favorite numbers in the movie?
Well, I wasn't really a tap dancer, so I really appreciated the tap dancing number.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated learning a little bit of tap, and then later I got to tap in another show that I did years ago. But yeah, I think I also appreciated I Can Do That, because he was really struggling with health issues. But my God, when every time he would start to film that number and to dance, it was watching like an eagle take flight, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love My Tits and My Ass that Audrey sings. And, yeah, of course, Nothing, and just about everybody. I mean, the whole thing is just wonderful. I just love that entire movie and that entire show. Um, in 1986, you guest starred on Miami Vice. Was that fun?
Yeah, that was fun, of course, and I was at a time when, yeah, it was fun. I came from the inner city ghettos of the South Bronx, and then to find my dreams coming true. I always feel like there was listen, sometimes it's not just talent that gets you through things. Sometimes it's grace.
Yeah.
And I always felt like I had these moments of grace where I would get to do what I love with people that I appreciated and looked up to. And yeah, it was kind of fun. And I got to go to Florida and Miami, and I took a girlfriend with me, and she stayed with me, and we got to hang. Yeah, and my mom was proud, and my family was proud. So yeah, it was nice. Yeah. I wish I could have had. This is another thing. I don't have the kind of. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to mention Bianca Jagger and Luis Guzman was in that episode, and a young Michael Bay, of all people.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I was auditioning for the role that she played.
Mm-hmm.
The role that I played was meant for her, but then they changed it around and made her the other role, and then me, and then they gave her role to me. So that was one thing I found out. And it was so funny because a couple of years ago, there was a video of my audition piece for Miami Vice. It was so awesome to look at it, and then they took it off YouTube.
Oh,
and I really appreciated watching that. That was really awesome. I was full of dreams then.
Yeah. The Luckiest Man in the World. I never saw this. I didn't even know Philip Bosco ever played a lead in a movie.
Yeah, you didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything.
It was a bad experience.
It was written, I forgot Frank's last name, but he won a Pulitzer Prize. Right, he won a Pulitzer Prize for the book for something in the Western world, based on I don't remember. It's not details that I can remember right now. And I was happy to get it. Yeah, but Frank Gilroy, there you go. But I didn't really I didn't like my performance in the movie. I wasn't one of those actresses that was really trained in film that much, and of course I did it after A Chorus Line, I think, but I still hadn't. A Chorus Line was different. It was just different, and I didn't really feel comfortable doing that movie. So you didn't really miss anything, but okay. But I was grateful for the opportunity, and of course, as always, to work with great talent.
How about The Cosby Show?
I got to do The Cosby Show twice. One time I did it as a movie theater receptionist. I loved that part.
Yeah.
I loved it. But they didn't keep it in, I don't think. And then I came again playing a pregnant woman giving birth, and ironically enough, I was pregnant at that time, so it worked. But yeah, that's it. Just 2 times, and of course, I knew Felicia. Because she's Debbie Allen's sister, so I knew Felicia very well. So it was. Look, Tom, those kind of opportunities, when they come to you, they come because you're the flavor of the month. You know,
Right.
Those are flavor of the month things that you see on my resume. And then when you're not the flavor of the month, those opportunities are very rare and far between.
Absolutely.
But at that time, I was still, agents were interested.
Yeah. You got to be in a movie with a friend of mine, Holly Fields, in Four Senses.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That was in 2012.
Yeah.
That was how I got that was so weird. That was so weird how I got that movie. I got an email from someone who said, and they're from Germany, and that was so wild. Yeah, but I was grateful to get to do that, but what did I play? A heavy accented maid.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like I did it because it gave me a chance to go to the States and see my mom, and once again, maybe, who knows, maybe I would have gotten, someone would say, hey, we remember you, and maybe I would have had a comeback. But then, reality sets in, and you realize this is just a gig. It's a gig. It's a gig, and do it and go home. And yeah, wow. But I had to talk like this, and I'm like, oh no, I don't need that anymore.
When did you do Chicago?
I did Chicago in 1999 here in Berlin.
Okay.
I played Velma Kelly for like a year.
Yeah.
And then I decided to stay in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in Berlin since then. And my career here has been quite interesting. Now, of course, I'm in my mid-60s, so you learn that there is ageism in the business.
Oh yeah.
But I'm not complaining about the opportunities that I've had in Germany, because what brought me to Germany was doing Diana Morales on stage, because I never got to do her on stage, and I never got to sing What I Did for Love in the movie.
Yeah.
So Mitzi Hamilton, who was in the original chorus line, she's the one who brought me to do a chorus line on tour. And then I stayed in Europe, and I pursued my career here. I have many incredible other credits on stage here in Germany, Chicago being one of them, and then musicals with other German known artists and writers. And then I was the first one to do Kiss of the Spider Woman in the German language, because Harold Prince let me audition for it for Vienna. So I did Kiss of the Spider Woman for a year and a half in Vienna, and then I stayed in Vienna and did West Side Story again, and I have a program where I got to play Edith Piaf on stage in her life story. So yeah, my career is eclectic, never boring, and yeah, let's see what comes in the next decades. I don't know how long I'll still be on the planet, but we shall see.
Yeah, I've seen you singing on YouTube, and I really like what you do with the singing there. Like, what did your interest in singing jazz come about, and how?
Well, I grew up in a Latin household, but my father was African American, my stepfather.
Right.
And so the house was always filled with his albums, like Dinah Washington and Billy Eckstine and
Billie Holiday.
Saravan and all these things. So I got a little bit of a taste for that. Yes, all of that through him.
Nice.
I got the taste for that through him. And then when I was doing Chicago, right next door to the theater where I was a very famous jazz club, jazz venue. So after the shows, we would go to the jazz club and watch the bands. And then I got to be very good friends with the booker of the club, and I had money. I had musicians that I could put together, and I put together a one woman show called Yamil Borges and Friends. And I had a very, very successful career in the clubs here in Berlin for 5 years with my band. But then it was too hard for me to maintain that through logistics and stuff. So yeah, I still do jazz clubs. I have a jazz gig coming up in 2 weeks. So, and I'm a lyricist now. I write a lot of my original tunes.
Nice.
And I have incredible composers that put music to my lyrics. So yeah, it's a never-ending story of how do you reinvent yourself, you know?
Yeah. You mentioned to me in Messenger that you study astrology, and our birthdays are 2 days apart. So, like, what made you get into astrology?
I know that's so wild. Well, I've always been I've always had this appreciation of the esoteric.
Same here.
Since I was young, since I was a teenager, because I'm a Gemini and I have twin brothers and I have twin sisters.
Yeah.
So I was always curious about that. Like, I wasn't a twin, but I was a twin. So for the last 20 years or so, I became involved in the world of yoga. So I'm a yoga teacher. I got my certificate in Hatha Yoga many years ago. And I've always loved astrology, and Vedic astrology I found fascinating. And then I found myself teaching my classes according to what was happening on a cosmic level, astrologically. And I'm not one that likes to be an imposter. And I don't like to teach something I don't know completely. So I've been on my 4th year now as an astrology student, and I'm working towards my certificate. So hopefully before this year is over, hopefully I'll have my certificate. And I combine that. And as I'm getting on in years, I have to find ways that don't require me to kick my legs up or have to do too much, or have to do too much contortions, you know.
Yeah. What's your evil twin like?
My evil twin is shy and defensive. I would say shy and suspicious. Shy and ambivalent.
Yeah. Mine is very warped and sick and twisted in body. I just come up with just the those dirtiest things, and just people, they can't believe it, because I seem so innocent, and I am a good person, it's just I find the dark funny. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, yes, the Macroba has a big following. But there's this thing in the yogic world. It's called the Algor. I think it's called Algor, and those are yogis that enmesh themselves in what is putrid, what is decaying. What is, that part of the biology where everything becomes decayed before it gives the opportunity to spring life from. In other words, that those decaying leaves and compost from your kitchen that smell rotten will eventually become the fertile for the new growth, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as long as the that part of you does not devour your spark of divinity,
Mm-hmm.
then I say explore them, as long as it's not, I would say, demonic and diabolical.
I totally get what you mean. I totally get it. I mean, the closest I get to, like, having a Zen philosophy or anything, I've read that, people who are born with very deep belly buttons are the most kindest, generous, caring people, and they will live a long time.
I've never heard that. That's very interesting. I'm trying to figure out why that would be. But then in terms of yoga, the belly button is near the solar plexus. But if it's a very low belly button, then it would be more towards the Svadhisthana chakra, which is the second chakra, which deals with our sexual and creative energies.
Right.
So the first chakra is the Muladhara chakra, is more in the genital area. But above that is the second chakra, which deals with the creative force, which is a sexual force, which is also in many ancient philosophies is in the form of a snake, of a coiled snake, right? So you've got that people that say, oh, the snake is evil, the snake is perverse, but the snake in yoga represents the Shakti energy, that creative force, which can either create good or create what is not good, right?
Right. Right. Well, Yamil, I'm so glad that you came on and we could do this, late over here and early over there, and I appreciate it so much. And, I hope future projects go very well for you because you are so talented. And I will let Jan know that, we talked.
Thank you so much, Tom. I wish the same for you, and and maybe one day, who knows, maybe one day I'll get to do something incredibly fabulous and I'll let you know about it. Okay?
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, you get some rest, and all the best to you.
I will get some rest, and all the best to you too. Have a great day over there.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
My pleasure. Bye bye. Well, there you have it. Yamil Borges. Ain't she a sweetheart? Oh my God, what a great lady. Very philosophical, very talented. I'm so glad we could have this conversation. And damn the friggin' technical difficulties. But you know what? I'm grateful for the conversation because it turned out great, didn't it? Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes. One chorus line of people dance till they make you drop.